All right, folks, we're back here. I'm going to have the ring announcer do most of the intros here, folks, as for the most part, unless I have to fix anything, he messes up, which happens more times than I'd like, but regardless. Rhea Ripley, representing Judgment Day here, going to challenge the Smackdown Women's Champion Charlotte Flair. This is a match that is scheduled to happen at WrestleMania, much like the Bianca Belair and Asuka match. The reason this match is going to happen is because Rhea Ripley, back at their last pay-per-view, the Royal Rumble, my personal favorite of their pay-per-views, won their women's 30-woman over-the-top rope battle royal, what they call the Royal Rumble, and really outlasted 29 other women to become the #1 contender ultimately to earn the right to challenge whichever champion here at WrestleMania. Of course, Rhea Ripley has her eyes on the prize and early on figured Charlotte Flair is the one she wanted to face, as it was Charlotte who challenged Rhea Ripley for the NXT Women's Championship early in her career in WWE. Rhea Ripley, who I have to say is a very impressive, tough woman. Of course, Charlotte Flair is another individual who needs no introduction. Of course, another generational superstar, daughter of course, the Nature Boy himself, Ric Flair, known as the Queen. Daughter of the great Ric Flair, the 16-time world champion. Very, very successful she is in the wrestling world. A lot of big ties in there. And of course, Rhea Ripley does not have any ties in wrestling. She got in the old-fashioned way. She earned it in. And Rhea Ripley, a lot of people might say she belongs in action movies, as she is a physically intimidating woman for many people. And of course, she's right now working with the Judgement Day in a thing with Dominic Mysterio, Finn Balor, Damian Priest. We will see a little later on in something I'm predicting to happen at WrestleMania that is not official yet. And we're educating people on classics of wrestling. So I mentioned earlier about the history of WrestleMania, how it really began. Vince McMahon Jr., a lot of people call him Junior, and I want to point out that he is not a junior. Vince McMahon Sr., Vince does not have the same name of his father, but a lot of people considered him to be Vince McMahon Jr. But Vince McMahon, when taking over the company in the 80s, let's get the intros first.
And introducing the champion from the Queen City, the Smackdown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair.
And that's the intros. Scheduled for one fall. Again, this is under all their rules, folks, so I can't guarantee anything here. I can guarantee you we have no control over the outcome. But as far as people getting disqualified or whatever, I have no control over that. This is not advertised to have any other specialty rules. Ripley starts things off pretty forcefully against Charlotte Flair, very proud of herself. So in the 80s, when the first WrestleMania started, it was really a way to incorporate both the art of the business of pro wrestling, and mixing it with pop culture in its at its finest. The early days of rock and roll music, the likes of Cyndi Lauper, Muhammad Ali, and many others. It was really a way for Vince McMahon Jr., as we call him. We're going to refer to him as Mr. McMahon because we all know Vince McMahon by now, as he has been the one who has ran the company since the 80s, since buying the company from his dad. He did not get the company from his dad. He bought the company from his dad, so people know. So it wasn't like it was awarded to him or handed down to him like that happens so often in wrestling. He bought the company. Anyway, Vince envisioned something of this magnitude, large, sold-out arenas, incorporating wrestling and pop culture, as I mentioned, with celebrities and pageantry and whatnot. The first WrestleMania, as I mentioned, took place live for free on MTV, the early stages. Charlotte getting a 2 count on Rhea Ripley. And following that, it was only available on closed circuit television, which we all know better now as pay-per-view. And it was quite expensive at the early days, and it wasn't available like it was now. It was only available in certain arenas, in certain areas. You had to go to almost an arena to watch the action. And, for example, WrestleMania 2 was groundbreaking because it took place in not one but 3 different locations. Today, I mean, if you really think about it, that was really groundbreaking that the event could take place in 3 different locations. Today, WrestleMania is mainly known for being in the same area. What used to be 1 day of wrestling is now 2 days of wrestling. They do this because they feel that people keep their attention spans, I guess, better rather than having a long, long day of wrestling. I am torn on that, as Charlotte Flair with a boot to the face of Rhea Ripley, who's been absolutely punishing Flair, getting a 2 count on Ripley, who's double tough. And again, so, you know, the likes of Cyndi Lauper and Aretha Franklin and many others would take part in various WrestleManias over the years. As is the figure 8 leg lock. Her father made the figure 4 leg lock a household name and famous. Charlotte steps it up a notch with the figure 8. Look how she stands almost on her back. It's bridged up as extra leverage for the figure 4 leg lock, working on those very long and strong legs of Rhea Ripley. It picks up the win to retain the title. Not today, Rhea Ripley. So needless to say, that was kind of how that all started with the original WrestleMania. The original main event at WrestleMania 1 saw the likes of the Hot Rod himself, Rowdy Roddy Piper, teaming with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff with the Cowboy Bob Orton in his corner. Cowboy Bob Orton, a lot of people may not know. Number one, he's the father of today's Randy Orton. So Randy Orton is a 3rd generational superstar, which means that not only did his father wrestle, but also his grandfather wrestled as well. And Cowboy Bob Orton, who we all know from the 80s, some people only know him as having the cast for a ridiculous long time. He was the corner man for Piper and Orndorff as, there you go, Charlotte Flair winning the title, retaining the title, I should say, here at WrestleMania. And again, this is a match that's legitimately